Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James and Alan. How you going, guys?
Not bad.
Good, thank you.
Good.
We're missing Callum today, unfortunately.
We are missing Callum today. He's off sick this week. Hopefully he'll be better next week.
Well, no, next week he's not going to be here because
we're doing
it's
fast.
Yeah,
You're doing fast 10. Okay,
he should have been sick next week.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, Callum. Callum won't be listening.
He won't be listening.
No.
That's okay.
Well, it's his fault. I'm gonna throw him under the bus a lot of times during this episode.
Yes, good, Callum.
Before we get going, just last week I noticed that there was some crackling and popping and skipping in last week's episode, which hasn't happened for a couple. It happened a couple months ago, and we knew it happened, but we weren't sure how to fix it. And then it didn't happen for a couple of months, and now happening in last week. It wasn't too bad, but we're aware of it, but we're not really sure the problem. And because it's not consistent every week, we don't know what it is.
So we apologize in advance.
Yeah, if it does get really bad and you can't hear what's going on, please let us know on social media.
We can raise a technical fault. Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of technical faults in the studio. Eventually they will get fixed, but it's just a matter of time. It could be months from now. And the headphone jacks haven't been working for a year or two, so we're
also makes it harder to hear.
We're unable to monitor. We're unable to monitor what's happening while we're recording. We can only go back later and say, "Oh, that happened," or "Someone was too close to the mic," or whatever. Right now, we're just winging it. But yeah.
Sorry in advance.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry if you can hear us over the popping. We're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. No, tonight is going to be a banger. So hopefully it doesn't. The audio's okay.
We've been meaning to do an episode like this for a while, right? Because we've talked on the show all the time about how Bollywood movies essentially saved the Australian cinema industry in general, and they're probably they are the biggest market in movies in the world. Bollywood is bigger than Hollywood, and Alam's floated the idea once of us talking about some Indian movies.
Well, so originally, because originally Alam, would come on every once in a while, and then would say, he'd say, we should do,
we should do Indian Old Boy,
we should do a Hollywood movie, and then a Bollywood remake, and then we joked about that a few times. But anyway, a couple of weeks ago, Alam, Nathan, and myself were getting Indian food at an Indian restaurant. And Callum didn't come because he's #basic and he doesn't like Indian food.
#mayo spicy.
Yeah, he's white boy spicy mayonnaise. So it was just us three getting dinner, and we don't get to get it together often enough because Callum's always there, and and a couple of our other friends don't like it either. So we don't get to go often. Anyway, so we went, and we're sitting at the table, and on the wall of the restaurant next to our table, there's all these big paintings and photos of Bollywood actors, scenes from Bollywood movies. And Alan was pointing at him and go, that actor was married to that actor, and that guy did this, and that movie's about this. And then there was one in the corner of a guy with a big walrus mustache and a guy with a gun to his head, like a revolver. And I pointed at it. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I want to watch it. And Alan's like, oh, that's one of the most famous Bollywood movies.
That's the biggest one.
Yeah, he's like, that's one of my dad's favorite movies. And I looked it up. I saw the poster. And I'm like, we have to watch this. And he's like, let's watch it, and we'll talk about it on the show. So that movie is called Sholay. And we watched it, and now we're going to talk about it.
So essentially, let's preface this movie. So it's essentially, I guess, inspired by Japanese samurai movies and westerns.
Westerns, 100%.
It's essentially an Indian western movie.
Others refer to in the industry as a curry western.
Yeah.
Did it birth this genre? Basically, was it one of the first kind of Indian movies to have a direct inspiration from classic westerns?
I don't know. I feel like there would have been earlier ones.
More in the past.
This one just seems to be the biggest.
Yeah, this one
he
just hit well with fans.
Yeah,
and kind of just sprung it. I guess it just became a real success.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's about an old lawman hires a couple guys to try and capture a famous bandit.
Yeah, it's a retired police inspector who needs to capture a dangerous bandit. And he sends two outlaws to do it because he's like, these two men are. This guy's so dangerous that the only two guys who could capture him are two criminals, basically. And in true Bollywood style, it's a 3-hour, which I learned recently it's called a masala film, where it's like all genres just blended together. There's comedy, there's action, there's romance, there's musical, there's all sorts of stuff.
But it also does it in a way that it
balances
doesn't.
it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel jarring. It's not like you've got 5 different movies all in the same picture. It kind of it weaves it
The
so
dramatic,
well.
the dramatic scenes hit emotionally. The comedy scenes are funny, but they never clash against each other. Where you're just
there's
like
no tonal issues.
There's no tonal whiplash.
Exactly.
Yeah, so Sholay came out in 1975, was directed by Ramesh Sippy, who I looked up, and he was like 28 when he directed this movie, and this is his 3rd movie. So he was probably in his early 20s when he started, so it's pretty good effort. And Alan was saying that, it was one of the most popular Bollywood movies. It was one of his dad's favorite movies. And I had a question because where you're from in India and where your family's from, you speak Punjabi.
Yes.
So assumedly your dad speaks Punjabi. And if he watches this film or has watched it a few times, does he use the English subtitles or can he understand Hindi?
Close enough dialects.
How close is it to Punjabi and Hindi?
The dialects, I'd say, are...
Sholay's in Hindi.
Like, if you've never, I guess, experienced Hindi in your life and you've just experienced Punjabi, it can be difficult. I was brought up in a household that spoke Punjabi. I didn't learn to write it until much later, or read it. And then I learned a lot of English. But as a child, I watched a ton of Bollywood films, and so I understand Hindi very well.
Okay.
And at least for the adults there, the regular school curriculum would generally teach you in Hindi and Punjabi. So every state would teach its national language, or not national, state language, let's just say local language, but they'd also make sure to have a class of Hindi. Now, some of that kind of gets a bit weird when you go down south, but south, I guess the English literacy is much higher. So you'll see them having their home language and then English very well. Whereas for the north, kind of from the mid to upwards, everyone kind of knows Hindi and then they're in their own language. And then English as well. And then
English, yeah.
So the movie was in Hindi, and I think everyone just understood it nicely.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because the movie's on Amazon Prime, and it's either obviously it's got the original Hindi audio track and English subtitles, but it's like really hard to find otherwise. Other than that, it's not really available, at least in the Western sphere. Because what I notice is when the movie starts and it has the anti-piracy warning and whatever, and it's like it's the 2014 3D conversion.
There was some weirdness.
It's the remaster.
I didn't realize that until I'm watching some scenes in the movie.
Yeah.
Like there was one scene early on
thing's
where they shoot
flying
a
at
gun.
the camera.
They shoot a gun through the handcuffs.
And the bullet. It's like a CGI.
I'm just like, oh no.
There are a couple of moments where they like edited in some bad CGI to like something flies at the screen when there's an explosion or whatever. It's not that bad because it doesn't happen that often. But apparently the only version I could find that's available is the 2014 remastered 3D version.
Is that a sign of how popular the movie is when there's not even that much 3D added to it, but they go through the effort of, I guess, rotoscoping some 3D in and doing or whatever else they need to do to re-release and be like, surely 3D. It's like 2 scenes that do it. It gets the people going.
I guess, if they're going to re-release it, I don't know. And I guess when in 2014, I guess 3D was still a thing. It was probably just because it's a big film already. They was just like, let's make a big event of it. As a cinema lover and a Blu-ray collector, and I would have preferred just a straight
2D
remaster because I did notice that a lot of the sound effects sounded newish, like stock sound effects, gunshots and horses, and it didn't sound like an old 70s movie. The dialogue sounded like the original track, which I was very happy with, but a lot of the sound and even some of the music, I was like, is this the original recording? I'm not sure, and I couldn't find any info on it. And like I said, the Amazon Prime version is the 2014 version. It's really the only one I could find available.
I can get my hands on a...
That's what I was going to say.
We'll call it not so legal technical copy of the film.
Yeah.
But it would be pre-2014.
Okay, can you hook us up? Because I really want to see an older version, quote-unquote original version of this movie. I know it was released on DVD like 20 years ago, and they're floating around. You can sort of find them. But other than that, like... As far as I understand it, maybe Alam knows more, physical media is not really a thing in India anymore.
No.
Like, they don't release movies on Blu-ray.
Like, yeah, because what would usually happen is you've got your cinematic kind of theatrical release, and after that it's just piracy. Like, pure piracy.
Or like TV.
TV, like cable TV runs.
Yeah, cable TV.
In terms of, physical media, if you've got it, you've probably got VCDs at the time, which were the, popular... I guess you rip a Blu-ray. You rip a DVD into 2 CD-ROM. So you gotta like turn it off during part
disc
1.
Yeah,
they put disc 1, disc 2 in and stuff.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all. Is it Brazil where they're still like big into like PS3? There's countries where there's countries like poorer parts of the world where they just can't afford to be up with the new.
We were just before the recording. We were talking about the PS1 and how easy it was to chip it and get pirated games and. People had entire libraries of games, and it just became more popular that way, and people could share more that way.
I'm not sure if it was PS2 or PS3.
It was PS2, and I believe it was a FIFA game in 2014.
Yeah,
that was released on the PS2.
Must have been PS2.
Oh, that's right. A long time after the PS2 was dead.
I think EA was still releasing games in South America in like really
Brazil,
old consoles because that's what the consoles they had. Yeah. And with the way the currency is, a newer console will cost them like a year's wage. They just can't,
importation taxes were like 100%. So you're basically paying double what the console costs as well. So people hung on to the older stuff. And then you just pay for the game, I guess, which So I'd imagine they sold it at more realistic rates as well.
So physical media, I suppose, is really almost just a Western concept in richer parts of the world. Because if you're you can't afford to be buying discs if you got other priorities.
Yeah, like at-home consumption was it was just your TV, and if you're lucky enough, you'd have a cable connection.
Yeah.
Very few people, again. It was about 2002 I went to the old country for the first time after I had arrived. And one of our friends was showing off that he had a VCD player in his house. And it was like a big thing. He's like, whoa, I can watch VCDs. We just go to the shop and get some. And that was, a big deal to him.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that prior to that, all this media is probably just sitting on big old tapes.
Yeah.
Original kind of tapes. And, whoever gets their hands on it can hopefully...
It's a shame because, Bollywood is such a big industry and there are so many films. And, watching this film for the first time and liking it so much, it's a shame that it doesn't get the same treatment as like a Western classic would, where they put it on Blu-ray or 4K and they remaster it and they give it in a little nice box set with supplementary materials. So it's a real shame that this epic Bollywood Indian movie, I guess you can, like I said, you can get it on Amazon Prime, but it's not.
For collectors, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the original, quote-unquote, original theatrical version. So, but yeah, the Amazon Prime version is fine, and I recommend everyone go watch the movie, because we're going to now go into depth and talk more about it. But yeah, so I think we talked about it a while ago when I was talking about Triple R, and I was just like, I know Bollywood movies, there's so many out there, but it's something that you just kind of at least if I didn't grow up with it, so it's like, you're just kind of whatever. I think I get the idea of what those movies are. And
for someone like us, right, it's there's so many, we could go to the cinema now and watch a Bollywood movie, but the thing is, it's also, do I have 3.5 hours to take a risk with a movie I'm not sure about? Yeah,
and also, I think, because, I mean, maybe someone like Alam, or just going online and looking up, but it's he can point us in the right direction of here's the most popular ones, here's the best ones, here's the ones you will like the most. So I mean, and that's always you begin that way.
Also,
but as
it
you
would be
watch
kind of
more,
patronizing for us to go to the movies and see one of these Bollywood Film Festival movies and be like, "Can we have the English subtitles, please?"
there's just the two
And they're just
pasty,
like- and they're just like,
two pasty white guys, and
Because
everyone's
those cinemas pack out, right? And we'd be like
Oh,
the
yeah.
two white boys sitting in cinema, we'd be like, "Subtitles,
That's-
please," and they'd be like, "No, get out."
No, I think on average they do.
I think they do it.
they
I think they do it automatically because it's just at the local Hoyt.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what Nathan was referring to earlier. It's like every time we go to Hoyt and we complain about, all the A24 movies and all the quote unquote good movies
Yeah.
aren't playing at the local Hoyts. It's
But,
just the superhero
yeah.
stuff.
But from another
And
part
then-
of the population, it's a great time to be a cinema fan.
No, but that's what I'm saying and then
Yeah.
a whole bunch of Indian families walk in and going to see the new Bollywood film. And it's just like, Nathan's always like, that's keeping the cinema alive. So at least we can go
Yeah, 100%.
anyway. Yeah.
Like they make much more money than Disney at the box office, man.
I wonder if that's true. I mean, just in terms of
Just
Australian
in general,
box office.
yeah. Well, just in general, I'd say, at least in Australia, our local box office, in our area specifically.
Yeah.
Obviously, mileage may
In
vary.
our-
The other side of the city, where
there's a
maybe
reason.
the community's not there
they
for
play
it.
them at High Point. They play them at, here at Broady. But yeah, I'd assume it's places
Regional variation.
exactly places where they know the audience is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd say certain areas the other side of the city away from us that maybe don't have quite as large community that would watch it, probably they wouldn't show as many. So.
Yeah.
It was a similar thing in Canada when I went. Areas with large brown communities, the cinemas definitely catered, and they would pack out.
Well, there's so many. I mean, now like I'm assuming in every Western country there would be an Indian population, and there would always be a place playing Bollywood movies.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if
'Cause
you're
there's
if you're
so-
smart about it,
Yeah, because there's
'Cause-
so many.
Yeah, prior to it, like at least for us in, I guess, when the communities were small and I guess didn't have as much purchasing power, let's just say, you just go to your local Indian shop,
And they have the VCD.
yeah, you'd start off with VCR tapes, and eventually went to VCD.
You do,
to DVD.
yeah. I guess they have it in the Chinese shops as well.
Yeah.
It's like you buy your Asian groceries, and then
And you're like, what movies are? They're like,
Yeah, it's
they
like-
pull out the book and they're like,
Yeah, you got the
yeah,
book-
but they're
booklet-
not Chinese movies. They're
booklet-
just pirated Western movies.
I don't know. Some of them,
It's
some of them are
okay.
Chinese.
It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
A bit of
It's a
both.
bit of both. Yeah, got to have a healthy mix. But yeah, Sholay. I love this movie. 10 out of 10 best movie.
It has everything. It really does.
It's like as someone who's sort of who loves all type of cinema and has seen many different films from many different eras and countries. This is my first kind of foray into Indian cinema, which I should have done a long time ago.
I also think it's a good era for Indian cinema because this is pre-bad CG Indian
Oh,
cinema.
1975.
Like
I think it's the same with because I love kung fu movies. It's like at a
Yeah.
certain point the kung fu movies aren't as good anymore.
yeah. This is before Bollywood got into real cheap CG, which made everything look a little silly. Like you got the movies
Yeah.
now about
And
the guy getting
before-
catapulted over a castle, and like there's
and before digital cameras.
Al knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And before digital cameras, where even the cheaper movies still looked like a
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Whereas now they can film things really quickly and cheaply on a digital camera, and it looks like a soap opera.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure. Look, I'm sure there are a lot of Bollywood movies that are just not worth watching and trash. But Sholay, like I said, 10 out of 10 best movie. It was awesome.
It is awesome. Like the movie sets itself up really well because like one of the first scenes in the movie is like a train kind of
Heist,
the
yeah.
train heist, the sort of
Shootout.
bandits going after the train. And you got your lawman and the criminals. He's arrested, and they're like, "Look, you have to help me, boys."
The action, yeah. The action scenes are really well done. The practical stunts, like horse falls, guys falling off down hills, lots of shootouts.
Yeah.
Jumping on the train.
And like, that's the way the movie starts. It starts off in that very in-your-face kind of like, no, this is like a this is next level shit in movie.
Like, yeah.
Like it starts off with the train and the heist and the shootout.
Yeah.
I'm like, where does it go from here?
Exactly.
It's like it's kind of that kind of big, like it's the director saying, like, I'm starting
Welcome.
at
Yeah,
10.
yeah.
We're gonna go to 20.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not.
That's
like,
this movie definitely turns it up to 11. I think what's great about it, and like we were saying with the blending of genres, is like it starts off like Alan said, a curry western. It's like a spaghetti western, like an Italian, but in India instead. And it came out in 1975. It seems to be set in the 70s, like it's a present day movie, but it's set in the sort of rural areas where there are bandits roaming around. There's guys riding horses.
It definitely has that
It looks and feels like a Western.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I'm like, if they just changed a couple of lines of dialogue and changed a couple of costumes, the movie could easily be set in the early 1900s, which would make more sense for this kind of action adventure Western. But I think they wanted to avoid the whole English thing. Do you think?
Yes and no. I mean, they have sections where there's gags about it and stuff like that.
They mention it, but there's no English presence.
Oh, no. There's
But if you did it in the early 1900s, yes, it would be more period accurate to a Western, but you'd have to include
that'd be a different movie.
There'd be a British army,
because then there's obviously
British
colonial
police
presence, right?
Exactly,
and you'd have all the political stuff that goes with that.
That's why I think
the different groups.
That's I think one of the reasons why they set it in the 70s, but styled it in the way where it just looks and feels like a Western.
I definitely think that's probably why they did.
Yeah,
because then there's other kinds of struggles they'd have to.
Because honestly,
the story around.
There's like two scenes where like characters are wearing jeans and sneakers and like a leather jacket, and then there's one scene where they mention James Bond. I'm like, if you just change that costume and change that line of dialogue, everything else in the movie, even the motorbike, you could say they used to have those old motorbikes in like 1910, 1920.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's still sort of end of the Wild West era. Like, you could get away with it. But I think they didn't do that because...
I mean, it's also smart because then it's like it gives the audience more imagination.
It
lends itself better to being a Western.
They also don't have to limit themselves to any sort of period accuracy. Because I guess there are bad guys with submachine guns. It's like more action, guys driving around. And there's not really any cars. There's horses, there's trains, which are Old West anyway. But yeah, I think that's why they do it.
I think it's good. It suits the film.
It feels because I'm a huge fan of Westerns, especially spaghetti Westerns. And so as soon as it started and it was, the long opening credit scene with the horse riding through the hills and the big red credits, I'm like, oh, this is a perfect spaghetti Western. And then it introduces the plot and the train heist. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome Western. And then as it goes on, introduces the comedy elements and becomes more of a comedy for a bit. Then it introduces the romance, and then there's some musical. Obviously, in Bollywood fashion, there's musical sequences.
They didn't overstay their welcome. Alan,
no, that's the thing.
When we're talking about this, Alan's like, "Oh, look, on the first watch, you should probably watch the music numbers, and later on, you can skip them, whatever else."
No way.
They weren't that long,
dude.
Like,
we'll talk about it later. The Holly song is a banger.
I've
got it on my phone. I downloaded it onto my phone.
For me, the intro song can't be beat.
Oh, we're two friends.
No. The very first, as the movie's being introduced.
But that's the song over the credits.
The credit score.
I'm talking about with when they're singing.
The musical.
Look, I've never been a big fan.
But
neither have I. But recently, I've gotten more into musicals, and I think the songs in the movie, none of them I wanted to fast forward, and the Holly one specifically, I was like, oh my god, I love this song.
I think they also overall they weren't that long. Like when he was telling us about we could watch them the first time. Usually I skip them. I'm like, oh, they're like 10 minutes each. Like, what's going on? But they weren't. They weren't.
No,
they didn't overstay their welcome. Like, I wasn't put out by watching.
Each one fits into the scene it's in. So you've got your relationship song, and you've got your funny song.
There's the bro song,
and then you've got your romance song, and then you've got your dramatic song at the end where it's like, oh, we're about to die, and they all fit, and they're all. I think also one of the reasons I really like this movie, editing and cinematography is dope.
Yeah.
Like the director knew what he was doing, and I heard that they had a really long shooting time.
2.5 years.
Apparently, yeah. Which I feel like I've read that before, that a lot of big Bollywood movies have really long production time.
When I was reading about this movie, part of the reason was because the leads got romantically involved in the movie, and one of the ladies fell pregnant, so they had to wait out the pregnancy.
Oh, really? I didn't hear that.
So, especially both main stars got one of them got divorced and then remarried, but yes, they both got married to their female counterparts or
Yeah, the love interests they have in the movie.
They actually end up getting married to them.
Apparently, one of the actresses got pregnant in real life while filming this movie, and so they just had to wait out the pregnancy.
I heard that she was pregnant, but I didn't know that they had to wait.
No, there was like a delay in shooting.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Because
So that's
of the
probably
pregnancy.
part of the...
Yeah, so I'm like, it
But
cost
I feel
2.5 years. Half of that was just pregnancies.
I'd have to look into it, but I've heard that a few big Bollywood films had these long production times, and I think that's what sets them apart sometimes from like Hollywood movies, where they're...
I think also
the 70s was a much different time, even in Hollywood.
Like current Bollywood movies probably would not have.
They just churn it out.
Also,
really quick, yeah.
we also have to remember this movie probably didn't have that many. Like it looks really nice, but I probably didn't have that much money behind it as such, right? We can imagine. So
it was a decent budget for the time,
but like you probably couldn't do. Could they do everything they wanted in such a small amount of time? Or they have to sort of spread it out so they could achieve what they wanted? Like with
but the fact that they were allowed to spread it out, or you know, because usually it's like you got a deadline, you got to get the movie out by a certain time.
No, that's true.
Yeah, I think. I think the initial release was 70mm as well, so you know it was an epic movie at the time. And apparently, when it came out, it didn't immediately wasn't that successful financially, but then word of mouth spread.
It was literally like everyone that saw it was like,
you have
to go see it.
Yeah.
It literally became one of those kind of movies rather than it be like
the Star Wars of India.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, and eventually it became like one of the highest grossing Bollywood movies ever. It became one of the most like longest theatrical runs. I heard it played in one Mumbai cinema for 10 years. I don't know if that's true. I heard another number that was 5 years.
5 years closer to the truth.
Yeah, that's probably closer.
That
to
wouldn't
the truth.
surprise me.
Yeah, but it's
Either
just like
number.
it was this epic Bollywood movie that became a big hit, and then when I saw that picture of it at the restaurant, Alan immediately was like, "I know what that's from," you know, and I guess, like I said, it's a good place to start with Bollywood because it's like you start with the big, famous ones, but I feel like. I don't know. I feel like I might have been spoiled now because it was so awesome.
Expectation for every other film.
Yeah,
Like,
it was so.
You should have started off with the bottom tier.
Yeah, you should be like, watch this crappy one and then work your way up to
my truth is,
Sholay.
if I didn't start with the big guns, I don't know how I was going to convince you.
We would have lost us.
You'd be like, nah, man, I can't watch
Yeah,
this.
be like, no,
Maybe City for
It's
3
4
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of the runtime, I don't know if the current Indian films, the longer films, have the intermissions. Obviously, like I saw there was that intermission thing. Obviously, continued,
Yeah.
But I'm like, respect for the intermission.
I think most Bollywood films have. They're mostly all long, and most of them have the intermission.
It's a great time to go eat some snacks.
Yeah, and on Amazon Prime it says intermission fades out, and then it just fades back in. I assume, obviously at the cinema it would be like a 10.
break,
Yeah, you get about 15 minutes to go take a leak. They have cakes there depending on the cinema. You can buy a little cake and eat it.
I mean, in the 70s, everyone would be smoking. Everyone would smoke in the cinema, so you wouldn't have to have a smoke break.
It was more about you taking a leak and not listening to the story.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's just having some snacks.
I did have a laugh in the movie every time there was
the smoking.
There was a cigarette warning.
Yeah, that's a big thing in India, right?
Yeah, like it definitely was not in the older things, but
that's another reason why I want the original version without any of the updates.
Like smoking is injurious to health.
I wrote it down. Cigarette smoking is injurious to health. I'm like, yes, thank you, India. I'm like, I don't like smoking.
Like a kid could go buy cigarettes. There's no one stopping you from doing that. But they're like, I'm like, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I don't like smoking, but I also don't like you screwing with my frame of my film. Yeah. Also, I don't know.
I do like. I guess the positive relationship the main characters have, Jai and Viru, right? They have that.
It's a bromance.
It's a bromance, but it's I don't know if it's we'll say singular to this movie or if it's a staple of Indian kind of action movies, but it does show, we'll say, male friendships in a very good light, and like it, like if this was a Western movie, there'd be kind of. It'd have to be a gay romance, but like it's because it's a tender relationship.
Because they're close, yeah,
because it's a tender friendship.
Yeah,
it definitely puts male relationship and male bonding in a good light here. Right?
Yeah, the first musical song, sequence song, is where they're riding on. They're like one's in the motorbike and one's in the sidecar, and they're singing about how they're like best friends and they'll never betray each other.
Yeah, and we live together, we die together, we eat together, we sleep together.
And then he starts playing the harmonica, and he gets on the other guy's shoulders while he's riding the motorbike. Starts playing the harmonica.
I'm like, but that's a good thing, and it's a message that maybe should be spread further across the world. Because if that happened in a Western movie, it wouldn't go down very well.
I was talking about
especially in 1975.
When I talked about Triple R, and I was like, the bromance is like the most epic bromance, but also the whole movie is so sincere, and I think this movie has it well. And I don't know if all Bollywood movies are like this. It's just sincere. Like, it doesn't feel tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't feel, I don't know. Like, it just felt...
But no, yeah. Like, the one thing I did appreciate, this movie does have a very good, positive, and non-toxic depiction of male bonding and male friendship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I think if it was done in another country, it would be less.
Maybe, yeah.
So I did appreciate that. Also... Shout out to the horse stunts and the horse acting in this movie.
That's what I was saying, yeah. The horse falls, I was like, ooh.
The horse falls. Some of them are like, falls that we've seen in Yellowstone where they're doing all the tricks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there was one, trick.
You're like, that was dead, man.
Yeah. There's one specific scene where a horse falls, but it goes
face
head
first.
over, but it jumps and goes head over heels. And I'm like, that horse is dead. Horses don't fall like
that.
that.
The guy that fell is also probably like real.
Yeah, because I love old westerns, so and now they don't really do horse falls anymore because it's too dangerous, and they don't really make westerns anymore because
they do horse falls in shows like Yellowstone.
Yeah, but they do them more safely.
But they do them safely. But that horse
Sholay,
did not have
there's a lot. There's more than one of the horse just face planting, and they got a rider flying off. There's a lot of good stunts like jumping off buildings and classic western like shootouts, chase scenes, horse chase scenes, like really just awesome stuff.
Stuff, except that one poor horse. I'm just like, I can pinpoint that moment where like horses are meant to fall like that, man.
Yeah. No.
But yeah, respect to the stunts. The stunts in this movie, you said
awesome.
10 out of
the
10.
action scenes.
So I'm gonna head now into some question modes.
Okay.
So as you mentioned, the retired cop has enlisted these two.
Thakur?
Thakur, yeah.
It's also like a name given to kind of like the mayor or like the village.
Also, Thakur is a title and not a name. Okay, that's interesting.
It can also be a name.
Okay,
Indian's weird, which I can say that because
I guess it'd be like naming. After.
So he's obviously enlisted these two outlaws to hunt down Gabbar Singh, which is
Gabbar Singh. He's like the bandit leader,
bandit man,
notorious bandit leader.
I will say he's the best villain.
Oh, he's so good in this movie.
And also, one thing Callum wanted me to say is that he looks like Callum thinks that Gabbar Singh looks like an evil Indian Danny McBride.
I can see that. He's got the kind of curly.
It's like
hair.
It's the haircut.
Yeah,
it's the kind of the dirty smile.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
But he's a good villain because they don't try and humanize him.
Because this movie is very much every character is a sort of archetype. You've got like the villain is just a mustache twirling, evil, sadistic, slimy villain. You've got the honorable police captain.
Yeah.
You've got the kind of skeezy. Who's the guy who does the wood mill guy? The skeezy kind of con man. There's a whole
sleazy businessman.
There's a whole sleazy. There's a whole subplot in this movie where they get put in prison, and the prison warden is just a cartoonishly evil, like with a little Hitler
the
mustache.
Charlie Chaplin Hitler
fascist
homage. Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's basically a Mel Brooks movie for like 10, 20 minutes. Yeah. And it's just like every character is you've got
and the prison snitch.
The prison snitch very obviously. Yeah. And then Basanti is she's very talkative. They keep calling her Chatterbox, and she just keeps talking. It's everything's very exaggerated.
I wonder how much of her dialogue was improvised or if it was all script.
I feel like it was all scripted. Yeah. No, it's just but it's not it's a spectacle movie. It's not a nuanced portrayal of
but
the villain. I guess calling it one-dimensional sounds like I'm saying it's bad, but it's not.
It's good. No,
because it's just like there's the good guys, there's the bad guys, and then there's our main characters Viru and Jai.
Yeah.
Who are in the middle because they're outlaws. They like to steal, but they have a code. They don't kill.
They don't hurt civilians.
Yeah. They kind of they're just looking for the next big score.
But I do appreciate the fact that we don't need to humanize Gabbar Singh.
No,
Like,
he's just a good slimy
like,
villain. Yeah, he just likes killing people. He likes hurting.
It's
and you see that the best in the scene where
the Russian roulette.
Yeah, he plays Russian roulette because 3 of his men, they go to the village. Once again, Taco's is like, we're not, paying you anymore. We've got our own, security now. And they show him up, shoot him a little bit, and they end up leaving with the tails between their legs. And he's like, well, why'd you come back?
Basically, this movie's just Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, plays a solid Russian roulette with them. They all survive. Makes them laugh.
Yeah.
Makes sure every single one of them are laughing, and then kills them.
Yeah, and that's the scene that the gun to the head that I saw in the restaurant was from. And I took a screenshot of it. I'll put it on Instagram with some other photos. But he's just a great villain, and you love to hate him. And the heroes are charismatic, and the love interests are interesting. Like, it's just a fun. And like I said, like with the comedy and the dramatic, like when someone dies, it's pretty intense.
It's heavy.
Like, it's heavy.
There's
weight. There's emotional weight to it. Yeah. And but then the comedy, like I said, then there's comedy scenes and romance scenes, but it's all blended together really well.
So my question was, obviously, you find out that the Takur has hired these 2 outlaws to kind of protect their village and hunt down this bad bandit man. But you assume initially that he's just trying to protect his village, right? That's kind of his MO for the most part. No, you do get a hint that he says, "I want him alive."
Yeah, that's all he says. He's like, I want, he's a, evil, notorious criminal, but I want him alive.
Yeah.
Like, so it's, to me, I was like, oh, this is personal, and I want to know why, and that's revealed later on.
So when you hit that reveal, how how did you feel about it overall? Like, was it something you very very much expected? And
I didn't expect Gabbar's actions on Taco.
Yeah,
I started to suspect after a while of what he did to Takur, but to Takur's family, I was like, oh, he definitely killed his son.
I didn't expect
the full extent.
No,
yeah,
I forgot about
and
that.
Apparently, that was cut. Some of it was cut.
Yeah, actually, that's
some of the
something
family
I want to
murdering
talk
was
about.
cut.
Yeah, that's something I want to talk about.
Get it rated.
The that scene is straight out of Once Upon a Time in the West. Like, this movie's very much like inspired by American and Italian westerns. But yeah, like the ending as well, they had to change the ending because it was like, oh, you're taking your law into your own hands, and the censor board.
Like in the end, you can't glorify vigilante justice to that extent.
And then
I was going to say, like, they say that, but the movie's pretty heavy on,
No, but then he doesn't end up going through with it. So, but
he's like, you want him dead or alive, and he's about to put his foot on his
Yeah. Yeah. A snake uses his, a man uses his foot to kill a snake, not his hands. And there's some other violence that's cut out of the movie. I mean, the movie's still violent.
I was that's not to say that there's no violence in the movie. Look, sometimes people get shot and you don't see anything. Sometimes people get shot and there's blood.
There's some violence. But apparently there's a director's cut that's out there somewhere, and it's been shown on like Indian TV. That I want to see that. Because apparently that restores a lot of the cut footage and the original.
That's another 20 minutes longer.
And the original ending. Hey man, hook it to my veins. I love long movies.
It sounds like
So we should say the version on Amazon Prime is like the full theatrical version, but it's like 3 hours and 15 minutes. But
there's something that's 200 and something minutes.
Yeah,
long.
there's like a 204 minute director's cut version that apparently is out there somewhere. I hope one day I can see it. The problem is, even if I do find it, it probably won't have English subtitles, so it's no good. But this movie's awesome. The action, the editing, cinematography, the music, just the characters, the comedy was funny.
I also appreciated the use of the harmonica in this movie. No, like there's some premium harmonica playing in this movie. It's tight.
Yeah.
I feel like if this movie was fairly, obviously changing cultural context and stuff like that, if it was a Western movie released at that time, it probably would be one of the most influential Westerns. Like, if you take the bones of this movie and release it as an epic in the West...
But that's what I was saying. Like, it's very much based on and inspired by, like, Magnificent Seven and Once Upon a Time in the West, which are classic Westerns, and other Hollywood films based on as well. But this movie stands alone as its own epic Western. And like I said, it's a shame that, it doesn't get the same
respect
treatment it would here that maybe it does in India. But even in India, it's never going to get a 4K steelbook. Like it's never going to get although a couple of years from now, it's the 50th anniversary. So they might re-release it, at least at the cinema. Because cinema is still a really big industry in India. Everyone still goes to the cinema. So I think that's one of the reasons why physical media is not such a big thing.
You're like, come on,
also
imprint,
because
Vinegar Syndrome,
yeah.
Criterion.
Yeah, do something.
Come on,
Arrow.
let's do this.
Yeah.
Because there's an untapped market for Blu-ray as well. For we'll say Indian communities living in the West that have access to this technology, or even people like us, film nerds.
It's for me, it's more like film preservation.
Yeah,
because it's just I need this film in the proper restored version, not the 2014 Amazon Prime version, which is fine, and you should go and watch it. But yeah, for me, it's like I would like the.
Yeah, movie, especially we'll say the classics, right? Because I'm sure there's way too many Indian films to. You need to be focusing a little bit. But I don't know why we haven't got the classics. One of these boutique labels should be collaborating with whatever rights holders.
I feel I think it's also, rights. There's probably rights issues, but also I think it's kind of like what I was saying earlier, where in my mind I have an idea of what Bollywood movies are, and because they're not as available to me or weren't as available to me as I was growing up and getting into movies. It's like it's always been slightly distant, and I think a lot of physical media, like distributors and companies, probably still have that feeling of like, yes, it's a big market, but it's also kind of a niche thing where, because they release a lot of Indian films that are like the serious Indian dramas that don't have any musical sequences. They're like. Quote unquote normal films. They Criterion releases those, but in terms of like the masala type film with the blending of genres and the musical, off the top of my head, maybe I'm wrong, I can't think of a lot of like Blu-ray releases.
No, definitely not. And I feel like, Criterion, we use the biggest name, I guess. They should release movies like Sholay, that they were the biggest of their time, in the 70s.
Well, there's a lot of there's companies that like focus on old Hong Kong kung fu movies. So it would be good if there was a physical media company who
if we win the lottery.
Yeah,
we're like, what would we do?
Business,
what would we do? Specifically Indian classics.
Yeah.
Because they have the market. It's a good business decision. They have the market. Right, especially these days in Western countries, there is a market for it.
Yeah.
And also, people like us, if you saw one of your favorite boutique labels releasing a movie like this, you would be interested because it's curated.
Well, especially now, like I want to broaden my horizons more and watch more of these films.
Because there's no point trying to get people interested in, we'll say, a very unfamiliar market by just giving them just start watching them. It's like, no, you need to curate them, you need to focus them. And a movie like Sholay is a perfect entry point into kind of Bollywood.
Exactly.
Because it's so close to Westerns. It's so kind of, if you're a fan of Westerns, you will like this. If you're a fan of
I think that's
dramas, you will like this.
I think that's why masala films are made and Bollywood, that's why they're all so long, is because there's something for everyone.
Something for everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to make it the occasion to go to the cinema.
It's men, women, families, men, women, children will all have something to enjoy. There's comedy, there's romance, there's action, there's drama. But yeah, like I said, this movie specifically blends it all really well. Before we forget, do you want to tell the story about your grandfather?
Yes. So, the two leads, Jai and Viru. Jai is played by Amitabh Bachchan. He's quite a popular actor. No, he was known as the tall guy because he was 6'1" in a country of India where most people aren't.
Sure,
very tall. Yeah, 6'1" is quite tall, and so he's known as like lanky and stuff. And the other gentleman, Dharmendra, is what his, I guess, stage name is. His actual name is like Dharm Singh something. He was actually born in a village not too far away from my grandfather, maternal grandfather. And they were actually working together on a job somewhere where they were
Before he was an actor.
Before he was an actor. This was very much like a few months before he went into acting. And they just had a small dispute over, I think...
What were they doing? Just construction?
Yeah, so he was doing some kind of mechanical work with some tools, and they were just doing general farm work in the same area. I think he was working on some kind of pump. And he's like, oh, could you guys pass me the tools, or did you guys move my tools or something? A little bit of dispute, and they're like, we didn't touch your tools, and leave us alone. And he's like, why are you guys being mean to you? I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna become an actor. And they're like, yeah, they'll have you shoveling donkey crap, from behind the studios and stuff. And
Mr. Bollywood.
Yeah. Like it wasn't fully malicious, but it was a goof. Because obviously you're in some...
So just ribbing him like, Mr. Actor.
You're in the farming village.
You're in a farming village in rural Punjab.
Yeah.
And this guy's talking about going, to Bombay at the time.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna be a big star.
I'll show you. I'll be a big star.
And this was that line from The Simpsons. Yeah, he sure showed me.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
So, unfortunately, my grandpa, she was like, I wouldn't mind meeting him again. Just like, remember me? I was ripping you.
Is that grandpa still with us?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So,
and he's Raman. How do I say it? Raman.
Yes, he's still. He's still rocking it.
Yeah.
He's actually he's visited Australia a couple of times, so I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it could be a possibility. Let's hope. But it would be a goof and a half.
Get the band back together.
Goof and a half. Be like, remember? Portugal equipment. I was like, I remember you.
I did move your tools.
I showed you. Good time.
Also, I guess the saddest character of the movie, I would say, would be Radha, right? That she loses her family,
the widow.
She loses her family, and then she loses her second chance of happiness later on.
Yeah, that's very sad.
I said before the show, the movie is just really showing how much God hates his character, right? Because she can never be happy.
I was actually really surprised at the ending. I'm like, that's pretty dark. Because you've got the happy ending for two characters, and you've got a really sad ending for two other characters. And I guess it's this balance of like...
Yeah, you don't.
It kind of works, but also it's bittersweet because the two characters get...
It's definitely a movie where you can't be like, oh yeah, I know this is going to happen, because anything can happen in this movie. Yeah. Essentially, like it keeps you... There's no safe...
I thought that there were things I thought I knew were going to happen that I didn't know. Especially the end when the fight scene with Thakur and... Gabbar.
Yeah, he comes up with his shoes.
This is straight. Yeah, I'm like, this is straight up from an old 70s kung fu movie.
Yeah,
comes with iron shoes. You're like, you ever seen a armless man fight? Well, you're about to.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was straight out of an old kung fu movie. I was like, I love this blending of genres, this blending of different.
And like 10 minutes before that, we have like 10 or so minutes before that, you have like Jai's Last Stand, which is like just classic Western. He's like, take the woman and go run back to the village. And he's dying there, but he's like shooting people as they come. Yeah. I'm like, that's just peak.
We should have said spoiler.
Come on, man.
Look, it's on Amazon Prime. You should definitely watch it. It's 3 hours and 15 minutes, but it's
3 hours and 50 minutes. Some of the best 3 hours and 50 minutes of your life.
I watched it all in one go because I love long movies, and I was like, at no point was I bored or tired. Even during the slapsticky comedy scenes, I was like, this is hilarious.
But they pulled that off so well. Yeah,
and then there's like I said, the dramatic scenes are really, they hit hard, and then the action scenes are so cool.
The part in the prison where like they're giving the guy a shave and a haircut.
The half the mustache.
Like I'm just like, this is classic Mel Brooks airplane level comedy.
Obviously the one-sided, or is it called a one-sided coin or two-sided coin?
Oh, the trick coin.
The trick coin,
coin. That always shows heads.
That was great, yeah.
Being used as like the moral compass, I guess, by Jai.
I like that's because it's also revealed that he had a conscience the whole time. Yeah. He wasn't doing it to trick his friend. He wanted to do the right thing the whole time. But he was doing it in a kind of outlaw way.
Yeah, where it's like, it's up to chance.
We'll let fate decide. Yeah.
But, turns out he was doing the right thing. But also, I thought it was an absolute goof that when it became the two of them were, I guess, arguing during this song over who was going to go after the lady, the coin just stops. It does not flip.
Oh, yeah. It's like on that side, And they're like, Yeah, that's great.
I like to imagine that Radha's character would enjoy the darkest of shit posts on the internet. Like she's the character that everyone's like, she laughs at the suicide memes on the internet and it's like, don't show the family.
There's a suicide.
Like,
there's a suicide joke in the movie where he's like, he gets drunk and he's threatening to jump off the water tower, and he's like, "I'll commit suicide." And there's like two old men, and one of them's like, "What's suicide?" And he's like, "When the English die, it's called suicide." It's so it's so silly. Dude, when he's like trying to convince the auntie to let him marry Basanti.
Yeah, when people goes
and he's like dogging him the whole time.
Yeah, he's just throwing him under the bus.
Yeah, he gambles, he smokes.
He has a heart of God, but when he marries, he might stop gambling. He might stop drinking.
He won't go to the brothel anymore. Don't worry. If he has the
and
love
then she
of a
wants
woman.
she comments on the brothers, and he's like, "Hey, what's wrong with the brothels?"
Yeah.
He's like, there's some men of very high stature go to brothels.
And it's so good. The humor in this movie is like, again, as we said, the movie is definitely, it's the masala movie where it's like it's a mixture of everything.
Yeah.
But
it
the
all
humor,
works.
there's humor throughout the entire. Like it's not. There's the humor in this movie is always present, always sharp. Obviously not with
but there's like
scenes.
the heavy
Like you
scenes.
see, like
yeah.
Tremendous English when he's like, "I died, the police coming."
yeah. Like even during some of the dramatic scenes like that, there's still some funny things to be found. But the humor was always good. There was nothing that made me roll my eyes.
No.
Like it was so well written.
It's
obviously
movie.
Also, we're probably missing out on all kinds of subtext and like.
Oh yeah,
and
not
like,
knowing the language, but like
knowing the language. But
even there's like a lot of good one-liners in the movie. A lot of good like.
I imagine it's funnier in Hindi.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Because
But
we're missing out on like the sort
inflection.
of, like the tones and stuff like that.
But I believe because I don't read all the subtitles. From what I've seen, whoever's done the subtitles has done a good job to kind of translate that as well as you can.
Amazon Prime sometimes has some dodgy subtitles, but the subtitles were pretty good as far as I could tell.
I didn't have any issues.
Yeah.
But no, like I enjoyed this movie quite a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
And I'm like Indian Western, I'm probably gonna like it, but like it was not what I expected.
Yeah, it wasn't what I expected, and I think
also was it Technicolor?
I don't know if it was Technicolor, but it was
colors were nice.
Yeah, it definitely pops, especially the Holly scene.
The visual, like the colors were nice.
I think as soon as
visually popped,
we were talking about it off air, where as soon as I think Callum said it, and I was just like, old movies just look better. Like we talk about all the time. Yeah. Like just the way the colors pop, and now it's the way they shoot things and the way they color grade them. Now it's everything's very flat. Whereas those old movies, they look really nice, and especially this movie where there's lots of costumes and colorful sequences. It really pops.
No, I can't recommend enough this movie.
Oh, it's awesome. Like I said, 10 out of 10 best movie. I feel like we've been ruined because now other Bollywood movies aren't going to stack up. I looked at the director's Ramesh Sippy. I looked at his other movies, and he did a couple of romances before this, which I'm sure I'll like, but he did a couple of other like cop crime movies afterwards that I think will be more in line with Sholay. So I'm like, I might go into those. Also, there was a movie, as I was like researching this one, that this movie lost the best Indian, like best Oscar, best movie, whatever the Indian equivalent is. It lost it to a movie called Devar, Deewaar, Deewaar.
Yes.
And I'm like, well, now I have to watch that movie. If they gave that movie the best picture of 1975, now I have to watch that one as well. So I'm thinking this won't be the last of these types of episodes, perhaps. Now that Alam's back more often.
Yeah, I'd say that's true. Like a good movie is a good movie, man. It's just we're being exposed to more classic cinema. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes when, our mainstay Hollywood isn't providing...
we always complain how we're so sick of, Hollywood movies now. Especially newer movies.
Yeah, that's it. I think Bollywood's our largest untapped resource.
And there's a lot there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. Okay, can we talk about the songs, please?
Yes.
So I'm not really usually into musicals. Over the last few years, I've tried to get into them more. I've watched a few, then I've enjoyed them. And, like I said, you get this idea of what Bollywood is. You get this idea of the musical sequences and the dancing and whatever. And this movie has that, obviously. But I thought every song was good. And like I said, every song was like I wasn't bored.
No, they
And
didn't
every
overstay their welcome.
Every
like I said
song
before.
fit into its place in the movie, and
I think
and
that-
didn't hurt the
I
pacing.
think the longest song was the Holy song.
I think so, and that was the best one.
Yeah.
And that's like in the middle, so it's like kind of like a big set piece. And then there's like the song at the end where Basanti's forced to dance and dance and dance. So I'm like, that's like the dramatic song. And then there's the love songs and the comedy
bro
songs, whatever.
song,
Yeah.
yeah.
But the Holly sequence in the middle of the movie, where it's the festival of colors and they're all dressed colorfully and they're like throwing.
Also, respect in that remind of the Holy scene. Respect to the flashbacks in this movie.
Yeah, this because the movie's so long, and it's like you get informed by each character. It'll flash back and show you like a past. Yeah, it's awesome. It's like a really good classic western. It's just like, and each because it's long as well. It like even though we said everything's kind of one dimensional, not in a bad way, but everything's fleshed out as well because it has that long time.
It has
all the characters, even Rumlal, the servant. He keeps showing up, and then he shows up in the flashbacks. I'm like, oh, you get a sort of, he's not fleshed out, but it's like you get a sense of familiarity with him.
Yeah.
He's like loyal, and he's always around. But anyway, the Holy sequence, awesome. The song is dope. I love it. I've listened to it. You can find it on YouTube, but there's no subtitles, so you don't know what they're saying. But just the song itself. I put it on my phone. I was like, should we play it on the thing?
Next week.
No, this is the time. No,
I was going to propose that we actually played the just the.
Oh, if you got
intro
it, bro,
score.
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. We'll write out. Should we end the show and
Yeah.
Like I said, it's if you want something a bit different, obviously language wise, a little culturally different, still has very very similar themes to, your standard westerns. It's got the familiarity.
There's nothing alienating.
It's also
in it.
got something nicely different. If you're not used to watching any kind of Bollywood films, definitely worth a look.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of my friends really don't like westerns, and I'm a big fan of them. Yeah, no, I'm like, why? They're the best. So I assume there are some people who just, even if this was a Hollywood English language film, would have some resistance to it being a 70s sort of western.
That's
and then
ignorant.
the added on top of that, you've got the Bollywood aspect. So there are some people who are going to not be able to get into it. But yeah, if you're a big fan of, if you love movies and you like listening to this show and want to broaden your horizons, Sholay is a good entry point to Bollywood.
All right. Well, look, thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, Twitter page, and Instagram.
Delete Twitter. We're trying to get off. Instagram is sort of our main.
As soon as we get off, we'll delete it though.
No. We're trying to get off it, and then but don't use Twitter. Try to use Instagram. I put some pictures of the movies we talk about on there, and with Sholay, I've got a couple of shots from the movie that I want to.
So, at Tuesday Review AU.
Yes, that's right.
We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.
I'm gonna play this song. Hang on. Keep the mics on. Keep the mics on.
Two's on.
All right, hang on. I have to get it. Are you ready for this banger? This is a banger, man. No, leave it. Without the visuals, it's not the same, but the song is a banger. All right, thank you. See you next week, everyone.